The beacon was already old when my great-grandmother was born. That is how I think of Threshold Watch. Not as a station we built, but as a thing we inherited and refused to give back. It sits in low orbit, 340 kilometers above the northern Pacific, and if you know where to look for, you can still find the original hull plating beneath the expansion rings. A dark alloy, the Veth Sovari, cast somewhere we have never found, in a foundry that no longer exists. They left it here as a waypoint marker, a navigation anchor for their transit corridors. They did not intend for anyone to use it. They did not intend for anyone to still be here. I had been on posting at Threshold Watch for 22 years when the long-range array picked them up. I was running routine calibration on the secondary relay cluster, the one that handles the Kel Passage branch of the network, 11 stations out toward the inner edge of the Veth transit corridor, when a contact signature came in. I did not need to run a second check. The Veth Sovari drive signature is in our registry going back 80,000 years. It is one of the first things a watch officer learns. You recognize it the way you recognize your own heartbeat. The particular harmonic of their full drive, that low oscillating chord that sits just outside normal spectrum and makes the long-range array's tone indicators buzz at a frequency they were not quite designed for. 12 vessels, coming along the old transit corridor at a cautious approach velocity, which told me something immediately. They were not here for a fight. A Veth retrieval force coming to take back something by force would have come in faster, folded closer to the inner system. These 12 ships were being careful. They were arriving the way someone arrives when they expect to find an empty house and want to make sure before they go in. I filed the contact report up the chain and pulled up the network manifest on my secondary screen. 612 stations. That is what the Veth Sovari beacon network looks like now, 340,000 years after they left it here. The original waypoint in Threshold Watch's hull is Station 1. The other 611 are ours, built on the same harmonic architecture, expanded outward through 119 star systems, carrying freight routing data and patrol schedules and colony supply chains for roughly a third of human interstellar traffic. We decoded their beacon language in the early expansion period, maybe 70 or 80,000 years ago by the old archive records. By the time we understood it fully, we had already been running the original station for 200,000 years. It seemed natural to expand. Outside control patched through on the primary line 40 minutes after my contact report. Admiral Sin Toriel, commanding officer of the Sol Defense Grid, a woman I had spoken to twice before in 22 years, both times during grid exercises. Her voice was level. "Threshold Watch, you have the beacon station," she said. "You handle first contact. That is the protocol. The watch officer on the original beacon speaks first. It had never been invoked in my career. I do not think it had been invoked in 6 generations. I opened the transit band channel, the frequency the Veth Sovari used for their relay network, the one we have been broadcasting on continuously since the second expansion period, and I sent the standard greeting packet. Name of the station, designation of the watch officer, affiliation, and then, because protocol required it, the network manifest summary. 612 stations, active and operational, current as of that morning's relay sweep. The response took 11 minutes. Full drive at their approach velocity, plus the light lag, plus whatever time they needed on their end to read what I had sent. When it came back, it was not what I expected. It was not a declaration. It was not a demand. It was a question in the original Veth relay protocol, the formal query code, the one that in their usage means something close to, "Please confirm." I had read the translation notes on that code 100 times. The literal rendering is closer to, "We require verification that we have understood correctly." They had understood correctly. I sent the verification packet. Full manifest. Every station, every system designation, every routing table. 300 years of expansion records compressed into a single relay burst. The kind of thing that takes about 8 seconds to transmit and about 8 hours to fully read, if you are reading carefully. Then I opened the defense grid channel and requested the standard Sol boundary protocol. 41 warships on beacon patrol assignments across the inner network received routing updates that brought them back towards Sol over the next 6 hours. 96 orbital platforms went to standby readiness. Not because I expected a fight, because the Veth Sovari needed to understand the shape of the thing they were looking at. A retrieval crew arriving to collect a waypoint marker needed to see what the waypoint had become. It took 3 hours for their lead ship to reach the Soul Boundary transmission range. When they spoke, they used their own language, not the relay protocol, which meant they had a translation system, which meant they had done their own research before coming. The translation came through in the formal register, precise and stripped of anything that could be read as warmth. The speaker identified herself as Carrier Archivist Solon Vethdar, senior official of the Veth Sovari Transit Authority, present to conduct assessment and reclamation of transit infrastructure assets designated under Veth's sovereign charter. Original survey period 341,000 years prior. I'll let the transmission finish. Then I read her the Transit Accord. The Transit Accord is a document our diplomatic corps drafted 3,000 years ago against exactly this contingency. It covers the legal status of repurposed Veth Sovari infrastructure within human sovereign space, the terms under which the original constructing party may petition for co-stewardship, the obligations of co-stewardship, operational maintenance, routing priority sharing, dispute resolution, and the single provision that has no flexibility in it. No unilateral reclamation of any station currently operating within the network is permitted. You can join the network. You cannot take a piece of it back. Carrier Archivist Solon Vethdar did not respond for 40 minutes. When she did, she asked to speak to a commanding officer. I told her I was the watch officer on the original station, and that under Sol protocol, I was the designated first contact representative for any party approaching on the transit corridor. If she wished to reach the Sol Defense Grid Command, she could do so through Threshold Watch on my relay. If she wished to proceed with Transit Accord negotiations, those would occur with the Diplomatic Corps at Solen Station, which was 14 light minutes from her current position and could receive her delegation within the standard approach window. If she wished to depart the Sol system, she was free to do so, and we would log the visit as an unresolved contact and hold the Accord documentation on file. What she was not free to do was enter the inner system without a registered transit accord signatory status. The Soul Boundary was not a suggestion. The 41 warships now on approach to her position were there to make that clear without requiring me to state it as a threat. There was a longer silence this time, an hour and 12 minutes. I used the time to run the afternoon calibration on the Kel Passage relay cluster. 11 stations, all nominal. The most distant one is 4.3 light years out. We built it 9,000 years ago, and it has not missed a sync cycle since. When Solon Vethdar came back on the channel, she asked about the extent of the network. I told her, 612 stations as stated, 119 systems. Third largest continuous transit relay infrastructure in the known human operational sphere after the Haldron Web and the Solen primary grid. She asked how long it had been operational. I told her, continuously, since her people left it here 340,000 years ago. We had not let it go dark for a single day in all that time. The original station in the hull beneath my feet had been crewed without interruption since the first watch officers were assigned to it, before the first expansion ring was ever welded on. We had kept the light on. It had seemed the right thing to do. The Veth Sovari Transit Authority delegation arrived at Solen Station 9 hours later and signed the transit accord by the following morning. I watched the sun come up over the Pacific from the observation bay. The old ritual, the thing every watch officer does at the end of a long contact shift, when the adrenaline has settled and the log has been filed and all you have left is the planet turning beneath you. The light came up slow and gold over the water. The original hull plating of the Veth Sovari beacon caught it the same way it always does, that dark alloy going almost amber in the early sun, warm in a way it was probably never designed to be. They built it to mark a waypoint. We made a home. I suppose that was always going to be the thing they could not have predicted.